Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Suzerain. Sorry there's no episode Tuesday. My recording schedule this past weekend was a little bit messed up, so I didn't get an opportunity to record like I usually would. But we are back. Let me get my timer started. And let's take a quick look at any of the more basic stuff to look at here. There we go. ATO brokers for peace amidst Rizian claims, Lispia mediates. So amidst rising tensions triggered by Rizia's territorial claims over the Aureus gas field and the pressure exerted on Pales, the ATO has issued an advisory cautioning against potential disturbances in the region's stability. The advisory is coupled with the ATO's commitment to protect the interests of its member states both economically and strategically. Lispia, a key ATO member and home to Les Power Corp, a significant player in the energy industry, is stepping in to mediate the dispute, seeking to avert a potentially destabilizing conflict over the lucrative gas fields. The ATO's stance on this dispute, particularly given Lispia's involvement, highlights its readiness to protect its strategic interests and its capacity for diplomacy in managing regional tensions. This proactive diplomatic intervention and the economic stakes involved emphasize the importance of the Aureus gas field as an asset, underscoring its significance in maintaining geopolitical balance. And CSP asserts their sovereignty by banning PMCs, unlike the ATO, which has legalized them. Okay. Looks to be it here for anything particularly interesting going on, so let's go ahead. We have a speech regarding our reforms. I came to the Grand National Assembly of Sordland to deliver a speech regarding the new constitution and ask for the support of the Assembly before the upcoming vote. I walked quickly through the corridors, giving my greetings to people on my way towards the parliamentary hall. When I entered the hall, the Assembly was in complete chaos, with shouting and cursing between the parties. There was a heavy argument about a proposal made by an MP from NFP. I took my seat inside the special area reserved for the ministers. Gloria was shouting from her seat at the center of the hall as she hit the gavel 3 times, with each strike heavier than the one before. Order! Order! I saw Casaro Kibnir standing up from his seat and shouting towards the members of the PFJP, "Mr. Kibnir, calm yourself. Show respect to the procedures of this assembly." Despite our efforts, the argument continued for a couple of minutes before everyone took back to their seats and finally went quiet. "Mr. Kibnir, next time when I tell you to do so, either take your seat or leave the hall so we can proceed with the procedures of this assembly and continue our duties." Some MPs from the NFP side shouted back at her in protest. "Honorable ladies and gentlemen, if you allow me to continue," she pointed at me, "we have the president here with us today. He is asked to give an important announcement." The assembly fell silent. "You have the floor, Mr. President." Mr. President. I walked to the stand as loud clapping started in the USP's side. Let's see. Honorable members of Assembly. I am here today to raise important questions regarding our outdated constitution. Let's see. Realistically, we would want to probably touch on all of these to some extent. Don't believe we do, though. I might be misremembering, however. perhaps it's not expected of me to say this, but the president holds too much authority in Swordish politics. In order to strengthen our democracy, we must be brave enough to point out the injustices and faults of our constitution. I continued. Let's see. Therefore, we propose changes to the Constitution to prepare Sordland for a more democratic era. Applause came from USP and PFJP seats. We will rebalance the branches of government to ensure a more democratic process. I focused on. Let's see. Let's focus on unity. It is more important than ever that we stand united as a nation in these changing times. I call everyone to be part of the change our people have been calling for. We all want to make Sordland better, don't we? Let's embrace democracy and unite under the banner of our people, and surely Sordland will be great again. Let's embrace the future. Just as I was about to continue speaking, Gloria Tori interrupted me. Mr. President, with all due respect, I believe Sordland is already democratic. We both know that our constitution is flawed. Tarkin Sol and his efforts cannot be ignored. We must keep following the path he defined for Swordish people. I'm sure the honorable members of USP will see that the president is acting rash by allying with the opposition to destroy the culture of Solism that established Sordland. That was the extent of my quick note. Thank you. The president has the floor. I'm not here to destroy Solism, nor our cultural values. Please continue your speech, Mr. President. I took a breath and continued. I ask everyone to think clearly about our current situation and join us for change. Be part of a new era for Sordland, join us, and vote for our proposal. USP will change and lead Sordland into the future. Let's finish with a poem. I decided to read a poem before I ended my speech. There is a destiny above destiny. Let's see. There's my country beyond everything, my beloved. There's a spring that blossoms out of the graves of our fallen. I don't know if any of these actually go well together at all. Fear not when the dark falls, there is an artist painting the sun. Beyond the next morning, there is a victory waiting to be won. The assembly roared with all kinds of different reactions. Some applause came from the PFJP and USP seats. Most of the others started to make loud noises again. Thank you for the speech, Mr. President. I walked back to my seat as MPs asked to speak. Friends Richter was among them. Yes, Mr. Richter. Thank you, Ms. Speaker. I would like to thank Mr. President for his speech. We, the People's Freedom and Justice Party, stand in agreement with the need for a more democratic constitution. I would like to thank the ladies and gentlemen of the United Sordland Party for their more open attitude compared to past years. As long as Mr. President's words prove not to be just words, we will be behind this much-needed movement for change. We welcome this attempt. I ask Mr. President to share the final contents of these proposals. The final contents of these proposals, or this proposal, would make more sense, as soon as possible. Thank you, Ms. Speaker. Suddenly, Casaro Kibnir started yelling from his seat. The president must have lost his mind to cooperate with the likes of you, Mr. Richter. You and PFJP are nothing but puppets of Western interests. Order! Madam Speaker, I know you are in agreement with me as well. Don't stand idly there while this administration is making deals with snakes and undermine the integrity of Order, Mr. Kibnir. How many times do I need to say? You are speaking out of... I demand to speak. Gloria gave him a stare. She looked annoyed. Very well, Mr. Kibnir. Go ahead. Mr. President, he looked directly at me. The nationalist movement does not agree with your priorities, nor the way you're trying to implement them. The National Front Party will not stand with you on your new constitution. Let it be known that the NFP's concerns are not included in this so-called democratic reforms. Thus, Mr. President has no right to claim them as such. We will stand our ground against any attempt to bring down our established political culture and national values. Thank you. Casaro went back to his seat, but the chaos in the assembly continued. Well, let's ask to speak. Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Kibner? I looked at him. Let's see. I mean, I'm inclined to just call him out. It is you who shouldn't use the word democratic when you want a more centralized government. He watched as he slouched on his seat, legs crossed. Call him out for not actually wanting a more democratic government, preferring a much more centralized one. I don't want to say we don't need you. That's far too dismissive. I don't know. I kind of feel like saying I respect your opinion, I think, should be said with some combination of the other two, not necessarily just on its own. I think we'll go with the... Yeah, this one's... Yeah, that one I don't think would go over particularly well. I think we're going to go with do not stand against change. Be part of it, Mr. Kibner. We can do much together. And we'll just thank him. Gloria looked at me to see if I'd finished my responses. Oh, no. Let's address Mr. Victor as well. We'd like to have cooperation between our parties. And we'll just thank him for his support, and we're looking forward to working with the PFJP. And Gloria looked at me again to see if I was finished with my responses. Thank you, Miss Speaker. I got up from my seat and started my walk towards the exit. MPs kept shouting and responding to each other, creating a loud mess where nothing was legible. Order! Order! This topic is finished. We are moving on to our next topic. I slowly left the hall. The shouting could be heard from every corridor of the Grand National Assembly. Let's see. President Rain has called on the Grand National Assembly of Sordland to support the upcoming constitutional changes in his address in the Parliament. The President's address came after a series of meetings within the USP, which probably involved discussions about the new constitution. President Rain talked about the main points of their proposed changes and revealed that the current draft will be looked over again with the leaders of the PFJP before it is proposed in the Parliament. Perhaps it's not expected of me to say this, but the President holds too much authority in Sordish politics, said President Rain, criticizing the power of the office he's holding. This statement was met with surprise and was welcomed by Franz Richter of the PFJP. We must be brave enough to point out the injustices and faults of our Constitution, said President Rain, showing that he is willing to bring changes that would not necessarily benefit his position. Let's see. Walker warns Vogslandian Navy over Helgeland dispute. Ooh. The tensions between Agnolia and Vogsland keep climbing. The latest addition to the escalations happened yesterday on the Vogoslavian Channel when the Vogslandian ships started advancing on the perimeter around the island. According to the Agnolian sources, yesterday in the morning, the Agnolian battleship Van Gilbin A387 had intercepted a Vogslandian destroyer, Stansian, and warned them to move out of Angolian waters. Or excuse me, Agnolian, not Angolian. The Volkslandian captain did not respond to the communication, but both ships backed away from the scene after several hours of standstill. Seeing this event as Volksland putting pressure over the island, Arcasian President Dwight Walker warned the Volkslandian Navy, saying, "We will not tolerate any attempts to trigger an incident on international waters. I call upon Mr. Hegel, pull back your ships immediately." Okay, well, we're on to the next section. Wealth of Nations. Interesting. Also, I feel like we missed an event, but maybe it's later, and I just for some reason thought it was earlier. I guess we'll find out. Let's see, got a report in Deer. Governor Braun proposes dividing up communities in Bergia. Not exactly a fan of that, buddy. Oh, we got a privatization plan proposal here from the Ministry of Health. Additionally, the ministry, let's see, through small-scale market competition. Additionally, the ministry's report highlighted the weaknesses Sordland has when it comes to a potential epidemic. Reported that much more can be achieved through the healthcare system if the private sector could lightly assist by generating new revenue streams and adding new services. Okay. And report from the General Staff. The General Staff has convened at the Ministry of Defense today to assess the security conditions of Sordland. More than 20 high-ranking officers were in attendance and discussed several war plans, the internal stability of the nation, and the overall state of the armed forces. Okay, that's a regional map because we've got something out here. Yep, okay, here we go. The alliance and the trade agreement, always nice to see. We'll see how all that works out for us. And, Van Horten wins the election. General elections held in Agnolia this week had resulted in the victory of the Nurist Democratic Union of Agnolia for the second time, with its leader, Martin Van Horten, continuing his duties as Prime Minister. Good for him. Let's go back to the national map. What do we got here? Anything particularly interesting? Boosting the economy, Central Bank Reinforcement Act. The Central Bank Reinforcement Act is poised to bolster the strength and stability of our national currency and the overall economy, with provisions for accumulating foreign exchange reserves, adopting a prudent fiscal policy, and supporting high export potential industries. The act presents a well-rounded approach in economic resilience. Yeah, we'll see about that once it actually crosses our desk. And yep, that's just the report about the Ministry of Health, basically saying we need more resources, and we don't really have a lot for them, unfortunately. The hidden power of men in uniform. No political leader in Sordland can survive in office without some support from the General Staff. President Arthur Whiskey was a leader who learned this lesson the hard way. In 1927, a military coup. Okay, yep, we know about that. Though nowadays fewer officers assume the role of political leaders, military influence continues to have major repercussions in politics across Eastern Marcopa. According to a report by the Alliance of Nations, this game's version of the United Nations, not to be confused with this world's version of the League of Nations, presumably. Sordland has one of the most influential militaries in the region, coming just behind Wayland, where the actions of the generals indicate serious military interference in politics. I mean, I don't think, at least in our case, our military really has much interference in politics, but hey, what do I know? As the report shows, men in uniform still enjoy considerable influence on politics of Sordland, and nothing is being done to reverse the situation, despite the country's history of coups and civil war. Again, I'm inclined to disagree with that personally, but what do I know? Rizi and Rumburg sign an economic cooperation deal. Rumburg gains naval base rights. Not exactly a fan of that. That's not fun. Then we gain naval base rights in Rizia, including Porte Drazan, Monkeys, and Kalkabiz Island. I don't know. Probably mispronouncing those, honestly. So, okay, let's see roughly where we get those. So, well, there's the capital for Porte Drazan. There's Monkeys, and, oh, there's the island. Okay, that makes that Pretty easy. Yeah, at least from this map, Runeberg doesn't have much in the way of coastline. There is a much larger map that the devs have put out, basically, that allows you to get a better idea as to what the whole world looks like realistically. But at least from what we can see here, Runeberg really doesn't have much in the way of a coastline. They have a port over here in the Valgos Channel, which obviously is presumably what they would use for everything that takes place here in Eastern Marcopa. And then, they probably have one way out here. It's just not, on our map here, but they probably have one out on the other side as well. But yeah, they're not exactly a major naval power, presumably. Unless this is a very significantly built up port, which may or may not be the case. But them getting those naval basing rights is not exactly great for us, because it does mean they get to spread out. It also means that they'd have a much easier time blockading us in the event of a war, which is not exactly something we want, all things considered. Okay, so that is a meeting for the Ministry of Defense. I'm inclined to say, you know what, let's start off with opening of the H3 highway. Arriving in Lockhaven for the grand opening ceremony of the H3 highway was a proud moment for all of us. Simon and Lelis, who heavily assisted in the project, were with me along... It does seem like sometimes the game kind of forgets a couple of words sometimes. Were with me alongside, or I'd probably go alongside, Lucian to decide how to proceed tomorrow. Lucian stood up. First of all, congratulations everyone. Too many more projects like this. Well done. We couldn't have done this without our excellent team. Indeed. Let's move on to our plans for the opening tomorrow. It's been a long time since the last successful infrastructure project. There is good reason to capitalize on the occasion. I have a plan on how to do that. If Mr. President accepts, a drive from Lockhaven to Arvery should do the trick. After the motorcade takes off, the road will be open to the public. What are your thoughts? I don't support anything beyond the opening ceremony. Actions speak louder or speak for themselves. Involving the president could be beneficial for his image. I think so too, Mr. President. I agree, there is much to gain. Very well. Sounds good. It would display unity and strength if we were all together in the convoy. Additionally, a large crowd is invited for the ceremony and will be watching the opening speech. Nothing like a cheerful crowd. Looking forward to it. I think all of us do. Simon stepped in for a comment. On another note, it goes without mentioning that this was a team effort. Beginning with the president who put trust in me, I want to thank all involved in H3. Simon, you deserve a lot of credit. After all, it was you who came up with the project. Finally, people get what they wanted for a long time. We will need to show our best face tomorrow. I'll make sure that our focus on improving business and logistics is relayed to wherever necessary. Alright then, we have a lot of work to do tomorrow. See you in the morning. Once again, good work everyone. The team left, leaving the rest of the evening to prepare for the big day tomorrow. The next day, a stage had been erected next to the entrance of the highway in the downtown. The calm and warm weather created a positive mood in the usually breezy Lockhaven. The crowd was large, but still smaller than some rallies due to the strong PFJP presence there. We began moving towards the stage as the excitement was growing. I'm frankly shocked that we don't have a bunch of people at the rally, even if it is largely a PFJP city, considering that we have no problems with working with PFJP. Maybe that's just me. I feel like there should probably be more of them out here supporting us. Okay, well, let's signal to Lucian to begin the ceremony. We were all ready to begin the ceremony. I gave the green light and the opening address began. Brothers and sisters of Sordland, I welcome you, Lochhaveners, today as a proud servant of this country. Lucian's voice echoed in the square next to the highway. Hundreds of Sordland and USP flags began to wave as the cheers intensified. Without further ado, I invite the president of Sordland to the stage. Let's move on up. I moved up to the stage to address the crowd. The press were taking dozens of pictures. Let's see. This isn't just for the people of Lochhaven. This also benefits the people of Arvory. And basically anybody between Lochhaven and Arvory, so that include Lenkerg here. So even though presumably the only people who are really here for the most part are going to be Lochhaveners, we're going to address this to the people of Sordland as a whole. The chanting from the crowd continued. Let's see. No, we're not going to act like this is, we've done this one thing and everything is solved. No, 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 no. Our work is far from over. This project is only the beginning of good tidings. Let's see. I mean, I feel like realistically we should just say both. The aim with the H3 was to improve logistics to aid businesses and create economic growth in East Nargis and England, and to serve our citizens who are having a hard time traveling between Lochhaven and Arvory. Both are true. There is zero reason why, realistically, we would actually have to pick one or the other. Just the way I see it. I think we're going to continue acting as though everything, however, is for the benefit, specifically, of the citizens. So our intentions with the H3 was to serve our citizens who were having a hard time traveling between Lochhaven and Arvory. And yes, travel times are reduced by half. However, it also provides many jobs. Because there's going to be a lot more people traveling this, presumably, on this route now. Which wasn't the case before. Probably also have a bunch of off-ramps with small businesses. Probably mostly fast food places. Maybe the odd restaurant and gas station. Totally not the way it is on the interstate here. Let's see. No, that's silly. I don't think Simon was really the one who so much pushed for the H3. I think he more so pushed for the high-speed rail between Allsword and Lochhaven. If I recall correctly, I think Graf was the main one who was trying to push for the H3. So I feel like it makes more sense to, give it to her, the credit. Leylas walked up to me and leaned on the microphone. Thank you, Mr. President. Lochhaven, it is great to be here today among you industrious people. This project is a perfect example of the capacity and capabilities of Sordland as a nation. United we stand, and divided we fall. Laylas brought attention to the strength that comes from unity. She then mentioned the positive change the highway creates for England. After she was done with her speech, Lucian took Layla's place on the stage to close the ceremony. Citizens of Lockhaven, there you have it. As promised, Anton Rain, the 4th president of Sordland, has delivered. He moved towards the entrance of the highway next to the stage. A 40-meter-long red ribbon was hanging over it. Simon gave me a pair of large scissors to commence the opening. The crowd was watching. Let's cut the ribbon. Which led to a huge wave of cheering from the crowd. Many flashes went off at the same time. Congratulations to all. It was a solid and fruitful effort, hopefully with much more to come. It is a good moment indeed. It gives us pride as a nation. One big step ahead behind us. Your car is prepared and ready. The drive to Arvory should take about 4 hours, and the rest of the motorcade will follow you. Let's enter the car. Ooh, we're gonna drive. Fun. I entered the car and sat on the driver's seat. The crowd was trying to catch a glimpse of me sitting at the front. Who do you want to travel with, Mr. President? Well, I don't think we want to just go by ourselves. Do I want to go with Simon or Lucian? I don't really think I want to take Laylas with me. I gave her credit earlier. I think Lucian generally sort of prefers more of the I support from the rear kind of mentality. I think is often how his personality seems to be. He's not too big on being out in the limelight necessarily. So you know what? We're going to have Simon the lead car with us. This isn't necessary, but I won't refuse. We can talk about future economic projects. Of course, Simon, of course. Some may benefit me as well. As we began driving out of the opening ceremony area and into the new highway, the media took pictures of me and Simon, who smiled to the cameras. The new highway was in pristine condition and quality. It was the best driving experience one could have nowadays while providing the best traction and least noise. After the relaxing 4-hour drive to Arvory, I don't think driving 4 hours straight is exactly relaxing. We were welcomed by celebratory citizens and Mayor Eric Neal. The highway officially opened to the public, and thousands began utilizing it as soon as we left the area. Today was a great victory for the administration. Economy, H3 highway, average transportation links. I mean, it's a start. And then, yep, basically just talking about how we opened up the H3 highway. Nothing exactly mind-blowing coming out of that. Let's go ahead and let's have our meeting with Isof Lancia. Got 12 minutes, so this part's probably going to run a bit long, but that's fine. I think the last 2 parts have actually run a bit short, so yep, it'll even out eventually. I arrived at the cubic building that housed most of the military command that resided in Hull Sword. The gray and brutalist structure looked daunting. I never liked this building. It always made me feel like I was standing under the concrete foot of a giant, getting ready to crush me. It made me feel small, and I never quite got used to the feeling even after this many years. At the entrance, I was greeted by Isof and his military entourage of young officers. "Welcome to the Ministry of Defense, Mr. President. Let's go to my office." We walked from corridor to corridor to reach the office. On the way, we were met with high-ranking officers as well as privates. Every time one of these soldiers saw me, they stopped and saluted me. When we finally arrived at Isof's office, his entourage saluted us and left. He closed the door and took a seat. Yeah, this must be something serious, especially since you invited me here. It is important that you don't get misinformed on this matter. Vulcan has another agenda. Or Valken, whatever, not Vulcan. He leaned back and interlocked his hands. The situation with Romberg is getting worse, and if it wasn't for our investment in the military, I would be even more concerned. Your tone doesn't inspire confidence in our defensive capabilities. Our projected capability in the future should restore your confidence, but we need to pass several changes to achieve a better situation. Our efforts to restructure the military should prove beneficial in a potential conflict. We would never be able to match the force of Romberg on equal terms, therefore our switch of the military to a smaller, well-equipped, and autonomously led combat units will prove better in the field. You've been doing a fantastic job, Esof. The military is in good hands. I am doing my best to defend the country. There is nothing I care for more than Sordland. The recent military partnership we have signed with Agnolia includes a mutual defense clause. In case of conflict, we will be obligated to come to each other's aid. In the case of a Romberg invasion, they'll come for help. Do you think their support would be enough to hold the line? I don't think so. Mr. President, we need stronger allies. Sure, Agnolia is better than nothing, but we must look further. Lispia or Volksland are options in my opinion. I'd agree. Advice noted, I'll bring it up to David. I've got no problem getting an alliance with Lispia, although admittedly Lispia is already a member of ATO, so, I mean, granted, I guess technically we don't have a military alliance with the ATO. It is specifically with Arcasia. Although Arcasia is a sizable country, if they actually uphold their end of the deal of a mutual defense clause, if they actually uphold that, I think they are significantly more useful in terms of supporting us compared to, I don't know why that clicked anyway, compared to the likes of Lispia. The only advantage Lispia has is that they are geographically much closer than Arcasia and thus would be capable of providing support much faster. So an alliance with Lispia is not bad necessarily. It literally does not hurt to have one with Lispia. I just don't think it's strictly a case of we absolutely need Lispia to be able to survive type thing. But they definitely help because they'd be able to help, you know, take some of the damage that Romberg would inflict on us while we wait for Arcasian reinforcements, basically. It doesn't hurt. So, you know, I got no problems getting an alliance with Lispia as well. That is definitely something that I have planned for. But continuing on, any deterrence should suffice, or should force them to think twice. Esof cleared his throat. Let's move on to our main topic. The mandatory conscription law has become a matter of discussion, and we need to strike a decision whether to keep it or remove it. The facts are that the conscription gives us a large reservist pool that can cover a larger front line, but these troops lack the morale and quality to be offensive elements. It is the last step remaining to switch to a modern professional armed force. Our restructuring is hindered by 100,000s of cadets, extending our logistics, slowing command structure, and reducing the combat efficiency of our experienced units. If they are a hindrance, then we should remove mandatory conscription. We need all of our resources concentrated on our efficient units that will outperform the enemy in our mountainous terrain. The choice is up to you. I thought for a moment before making my decision. No, I'm inclined to agree. I don't think we need mandatory conscription. I don't think it necessarily benefits us. The only thing I would necessarily change would be obviously probably, a draft. Mandatory conscription, gone. Having a draft still, not necessarily a bad idea. Sure, the new changes will be implemented as you wish. A strong knock on the door was heard, and the chief of the armed forces, Vulcan Kruger, walked in quickly with a frown. What is the meaning of this, Esau? Why haven't I been invited? What is going on here? You are overstepping and interrupting a personal meeting between me and the president. Vulcan deliberated the situation. I see what is going on here. I mean no disrespect, but I am leading the ground operations and I must be informed of any strategic changes. Well, yeah, I mean, technically he does have a point. The military needs to be on the same page on any changes. Thank you, Mr. President. We are talking about our national defense, which must be consulted among all staff. To clarify, we would have brought the subject up with the General Staff and you. The matter is rather simple from my point of view. Our forces have gone large structural changes changing the... What? Our forces have gone large structural changes changing the operational capabilities and... What? Is it maybe supposed to be our forces have gone through large structural changes, pause, changing the operational capability, changing their operational capabilities and tactics. However, at the end of the day, Roomberg has a larger army, air force, and navy. Our conscripts will fill the much needed weaknesses we have. Well, you can't really say number 3. I'm sure this game has some version similar to World War II. I'm absolutely certain of that. I'd be really, really shocked if there isn't. I mean, I don't think anybody would necessarily complain about having some sort of reservist force either. But that's still different than mandatory conscription. The reality is, I would, in very many ways here, get rid of the mandatory conscription. I would maintain a reservist force. Generally, that would be people that have recently left the military. But that can be, obviously quickly called back if needed. And then I would also have just a standard draft as well. And generally, when we need more bodies, it is first, we get people who actually volunteer and join up. Then if we don't have enough from that recruitment pool, then we recruit from the reservist pool. And if that still doesn't fill out stuff that we need, then we use a draft to fill out the rest. Just seems like the more obvious way to make this change. Because, yeah, I'd agree there is still a place for reservists. But that doesn't necessarily mean you need to still have mandatory conscription. We don't share the same opinion. This is a modern age and requires a modern army. Also requires modern solutions. That settles it then. I would ask you to consider. No, I am content with the decision. Alright, then we can move on. We also have to decide how exactly we spend our additional remaining funds in the military. In June, we decided to upgrade the equipment of our military. The military thanks the administration for the extensive support, especially in creating a modern fighting force. We need to decide what branch we would want to modernize more. Okay, well, which branch requires modernization the most? Strategically speaking, the Army would be the safest choice. However, the air and naval forces would do well with further modernization as well. Which branch should we modernize? I mean, they're not... While the Navy might benefit, certainly won't disagree with that. I feel like with our strategic position, they are not the number one choice for fairly obvious reasons. Our primary geopolitical threat is Roomberg. Guess where the fighting would be? On the ground and in the air. So realistically, Army and Air Force make the most sense. add to that if for some reason we got into a conflict with Volksland, not going to happen, but just, hypothetically, if it happened, if we did get into a fight with Volksland and they brought their navy out, our Air Force, if modernized correctly, would be capable of assisting with naval threats. Because presumably we would be able to equip them. Granted, it is the 50s, so, don't exactly expect air to surface, basically anti-ship missiles carried by aircraft, ASMs. Realistically, or at least they're not going to be super advanced, bare minimum. But nonetheless, they would be able to be potentially equipped, especially because this is the 50s, likely with, CCIP, which is certainly useful when you are attempting to drop bombs on a naval target, or really just any target that is moving. So, yeah, I really think you'd have a hard time saying that the Air Force is not worth it either, but I'm inclined to agree. Strategically speaking, the Army is the obvious and only real choice. Once the Army is modernized, if there's any extra funds left over, you can start modernizing the Air Force, would be my number 2 pick, and then finally the Navy, because the reality is for us, I don't think modernizing the Navy is a top priority. Obviously, it doesn't hurt. I just do not believe that is necessarily the first choice we need. Considering, again, who our geopolitical rivals are, namely Rumburg. Volksland would be a close second, particularly because of our alliance with Agnolia. So, modernize the army. We need better equipped soldiers. As you wish, the changes will be implemented this month and finished at the end of November. I don't even know what month it is, buddy. You can tell me that as if I know, but I don't know. Thank you for listening. And thank you for your time. I left the Ministry of Defense and returned to the Maroon Palace. Let's see. Situation. Modernized army. This is considered a good choice. Presumably if I chose Navy, it'd probably be kind of far down if we're completely honest. Yep, that's going to be it for this part. I will see you all next time where we will be continuing this, and it's probably going to be a little bit until we actually get to the trade negotiations with Lispia and Volksland. Probably another 2 parts, maybe 3, depends upon exactly how many choices we have. But until next time, goodbye and farewell. Ouch.